so I don't forget. And in the event that, there's someone that's not listening yet, we'll get started in about 4 minutes. Does anyone have any questions before we start? Any questions? I have not looked at homework to grade that yet. We do have a quiz that will be released after lecture today. So quiz number 2 will be due. Scott and Tim. All right. All right, we'll hang on for a few more minutes and see if the rest of our clan's going to join us, and go from there. Is it raining by all you guys?
Yesterday was really bad, and I discovered that the house that I just bought has a leak in the roof, so that was fun. But today it's just been
Oh
a
my gosh.
drizzle. So
Oh, that's very disappointing, isn't
yeah,
it? Wow.
thankfully it just seems like one of the vents up on the roof separated a little bit, so we just have to seal that back down. It's not like a meteor or anything crashed through.
Okay. Yeah, it's not a huge repair. We had to do that to my son's house once. Yeah, a couple of years ago. Where, by the furnace vent. So it wasn't a huge deal. I guess it's better to know now than in winter. I mean, figured out now. It's been raining the entire day here. I have not taken my dogs out for a walk, nothing. It's been.
It's also better to know now that my dad is around and I can just be like, "Hey, old man, get up on the roof and fix that."
Yeah,
So
exactly. Get up on the roof, but don't hurt yourself. So
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, no, it is. Yeah, you're right. If there's family around that's handy, it's certainly helpful. So yeah, kind of a very dreary kind of last couple of days. So hopefully, we're going to be doing numbers today. So those who love numbers, we've got some math coming at you. If you don't like numbers, it won't be tremendously hard. We're not doing like, extended computations for algebra, but some math. We're going to do a little bit of econ today. A little bit of econ coming at you as part of our foundation. So if you don't have a calculator on your phone, you might want to grab a calculator because there will be, like I said, a little bit of math that we'll be doing, a little bit of finance with a basic income statement. So that's kind of why I have the note on there saying, hey, use this PowerPoint because I deviate from the textbook for this chapter because, well, frankly, I like the way I do it better. So that's why. All right. I think we've got, hi, Angel. All right. Robin here? No Robin. All right. Here. All right. Okay, it's 6 o'clock, so we are going to get started. So that way so you have time to work on that quiz, right? So again, we do have a quiz that is due, so it will open up at the end of lecture today, and then it's due next Wednesday. All right, so we're going to talk about our pricing. Oh, there's Robin. Oh, that was perfect timing. All right, so pricing. So again, use this for the quiz rather than the textbook. So starting by understanding the economic concept with demand. So typically for most products, right, as the price decreases, demand increases. So these are our intersection points, right here. So that's what that's showing us. So it's saying, okay, at an initial price, right? So at price 1, at a lower price, at $10, our demand will be, 100,000. Can anyone else not hear me? I checked in. Angela could hear me. Okay, so um, hold on. Let me type a note to Scott. Telling him to log off. Okay, all right, there you go. Sounds good. I'll continue on as Scott is reworking things. Right, so economic concept, as price decreases, demand increases, or vice versa. So in this particular model, what we're looking at is our lower price will have a higher demand. And then if we look up, we can say, okay, well, at, price here, we'll have, less of a demand. At price here, we would have even less of a demand, not a straight line. But so part of what we look at in marketing, using this concept, is to understand, well, how do I know how much my demand is going to change based on my pricing? And that's going to fluctuate from, situation to situation, depending on external circumstances, based on industry, what's going on within the industry, what's going on with competition. So it's not like there's one formula that we can use, but under that general concept, right, then we go from there to understand, okay, how much does demand change with price? That concept's called elasticity. So understanding price elasticity, if you kind of think of a rubber band and how a rubber band pulls, that's what we're looking at here. So as I change a price, how much pull do I have? How much elasticity do I have before it affects the quantity, right? So before it affects that concept here in terms of our economic. So can you hear me now, Scott?
Yes, I can. I'm going to log back out and back in. I'm trying my phone for now, though.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. All right. So looking at price elasticity. So there's two polarized areas, right? So we have elastic and inelastic. So elastic is if there's a change in price, it's going to result in a fairly large change in demand, right? So small changes, large demand. Inelastic is if there's a change in price, there is really very little effect on demand. And then we've got all of the in between, right? So again, we've got that rubber band, we've got really elastic on one end, inelastic on the other, and then kind of that in between. Almost all products come in that kind of in between. And again, we have to kind of determine, depending what's going on in external circumstances, as far as how elastic it is. So for example, if I asked you, do you think a 20% increase in the price of gas would largely affect how much gas is purchased? Right. So what do you think? 20%. Yeah, not really much, because to be honest, we see a 20% increase and decrease in gas fairly regularly now, right? We'll go between, $3 and $3.60. We kind of fluctuate. Yeah, it kind of happens overnight. It fluctuates now like that. So a 20%, so it's fairly inelastic. But if you go to like maybe a 40% increase, well, once we hit a certain point, like a 40% increase, okay, well, now we're topping at over that $4 mark. When that happens, do people as general, does the market in general change their driving patterns? What do you guys think? Think that on general people then start to change? Yeah, they do. Yeah. Yeah, they'll do. Yep, let's travel for fun. You'll maybe kind of map out what you're going to do. I'm going to pretend I didn't see that, because next week I think we're talking about ethics. Oh no, next week. That's in my other class. No, funny. I know that's funny. Yeah, carpooling might be an issue. Or I have a acquaintance of mine who like, if she has a lot to do in a day, and it's kind of all over, she'll like go into Google Maps and kind of plot out her day and then let them tell her what order she should do it in. So it is the most effective and the best gas mileage, right? So there's, yeah, hitchhiking, probably not so much anymore, but I guess I watch too many, I'm not a huge watcher of television, but sometimes if I do, it's like a crime show. So like that's my immediate thought goes to like, yeah, the true crime shows kind of eliminated any desire for me to hitchhike. But yeah, it's off topic. So again, so 20%, not so much. 40%, yeah. And then that, now what if we had a 30% decrease in the price of gas? Would you drive more? Yeah, maybe that, and yeah, or maybe, or you're right. Did anyone else, do you guys remember when gas was $1? Do you guys remember? It was a couple years ago. Yes. My husband and I, yes, gas was actually $1. It was, I'm very bad at time. Yeah, I actually, I took a picture of it. I should go back and look and see what actual time frame that was. But yeah, it was like crazy. It was right after COVID or right on the end of COVID. Um, my husband and I talked about we should like buy like a old tanker and buy some land and then you know fill it up and then go and be able to get gas for the next I don't know how many years with this tanker full of gas. But yeah, so yeah, a decrease. So what this is saying is there is elasticity with gas, but it might be more towards that inelastic side, right? Because of just the way that we use gas. But we like could look at the like a Ford F-150, right? So we've been talking about vehicles, right? So would a 30% increase in a Ford F-150? Oh, thank you. So 3 years ago. Thanks, Jade. 3 years ago. Time flies. Actually, it actually seems like it was longer than that to me. So it's not even a time flies for me on that one. Seems ages ago. So we would like look at it from a comparison standpoint. So how about a 30% increase in an F-150 if competitors didn't increase, right? So if it's all across the board, well then you're right, it depends on brand loyalty, and it also, if you have to use a truck for work, and that's the type of truck you've always used and well, if you need it for work and you need a new vehicle, right, that concept, that value component is going to be different. So someone doesn't really need a vehicle might hold off. Someone who needs, so again, in marketing, we want to understand that elasticity for our product in the market that we're producing. How we can understand that is the concept of value, right, which we've been talking about since week 1, right, when we started out with value and said, listen, what you find a value, I don't find a value. So in marketing, we go to that target market that aligns with what we believe that we're providing a value, and then we get to understand. So the more that we can understand about the market, more that they are, what are they finding of value with our product, right? It's called perceived value. And it's a hard concept because it changes, right? I mean, can you think of something that maybe 5 years ago you used all the time, brand loyal, and then life changes and our value system changes, what we need or what we don't need changes, and now all of a sudden that thing that was extremely valuable 5 years ago is merely okay right now, right? In marketing terms, how to try to map that and understand that takes a lot of time, and that's why marketing is so important, because it's taking the time and gaining the experience to understand perceived value in terms of that product life cycle, and understanding that price sensitivity. That's where it corresponds to that elasticity concept, right? How sensitive are buyers to changes in price? However, part of that could also be how sensitive are buyers when buying situations change. So an example of that might be, I might be extremely loyal to a certain gas station because it's just on my way. It's just very convenient for me. And then all of a sudden, now some road changes occur, and that gas station that I was very loyal to now is not quite so convenient. My buying situation has changed. So I changed gas stations, right? Yeah, yes, I know. Quick Trip is so close to me. Although I did not, I went to Starbucks for a coffee today because I was having a really cruddy afternoon. So I will say I did not, oh, actually, you know what? That's not true. I went to Quick Trip and got a coffee in the morning and Starbucks and got a coffee this afternoon. You know it's a bad day when I buy 2 coffees plus make coffee at home. So yeah, we'll see. So if you find that I'm talking really fast, just like give me a slow down. Okay. So understand why I might be talking fast because, yeah, a little bit too much coffee today. So buyer's perspectives as a buyer, as that customer, as that consumer, right? I'm looking out in my interest. What is the seller providing to me of value? And at that price, is it how much value is at that certain price point, right? That price sensitivity. From the seller's perspective, right? Sellers, when we look at pricing, is cost, demand, and then we take a look at that external situation with competitors. So costs and profitability fall under our P. So our first introduction into math is the concept of break even. So break even is at the point looking at what is the break even, what is the point where I recover all of my variable and fixed costs. So let's talk about variable costs. Variable costs, for those who haven't gone through accounting yet, are those things that change with how much I'm producing. So for example, if I am KI here in Green Bay and I'm producing conference tables, right? So I'm producing tables. My variable costs would be the wood that goes in the table, the metal that goes into table, the brackets, the screws, the plastic, all of that would be considered variable costs, right? Because if I produce one table, I'll use 20 screws. If I produce 100 tables, I'll do 2,000 screws, right? So it is variable to how much I'm producing. Hourly labor can often also be a variable cost. So that's one of those accounting kind of mushy areas because hourly labor variable, salaried labor is fixed, but oh, sweet. So variable costs vary with production. So think of on the income statement cost of goods sold as variable costs. Okay, so those two align. Fixed costs are those things that do not change. If I produce one table, I have a rent cost. If I produce 100 tables, I still have that same rent cost. So think of rent, insurance, any salaries that are, set, those are fixed costs. So what break even does is saying at what point, how much do I have to sell to recover all of my fixed costs and the variable cost? So at that break even point, right, that helps me to determine part of my strategy. So let's go through a mathematical component, right? We are going to help a friend. So a friend wants to open up a new specialty boutique and wants to figure out all of this math stuff, right? So your friend's putting together a business plan, young child clothing resale shop, right? So kind of a very niche market, right? It's not just any clothing resale. It is really geared towards young kids. So stepping back from math for a second, who do you think is the target market for your friend? And again, don't worry, there's no right or wrong answer here. I just want you to have a thought process. Yep. So yeah, so parents, right, are moms, um, parents, young families. What else? Kind of think. Who would purchase young clothes? Yeah, grandparents maybe as well, right? So yeah. Oh, that's a great point. You're right. So kids, more and more have a say in what they wear, right? So we didn't define what does young mean, but I don't know. How would you define young? If I asked you, what do you think would be a young child putting together a business plan for? What would the general market consider pre-middle school or elementary? Is that is pre-middle school and elementary synonyms? Pre-middle school, preteen. Okay, so let's just say, yeah, so let's say 10 and under. Yeah, there you go, Caroline. We were thinking the same thing, 10 and under, so we can just kind of set that in our mind. So target market, yes. Parents, grandparents. So how would I try to determine, what would you suggest to your friend to try to figure out who these are? How am I going to get information on this market that's geared towards 10 and under children's clothing resale? So what demographics? What demographics would I use? Okay, so go back to our segmenting, targeting, and positioning. Yeah, so age and location. Yeah. So if I'm like in a city, right, knowing that sometimes there's, for example, Green Bay is Green Bay, right? So if you look at Green Bay, you look, okay, it's 110,000 people in just the city, and then you've got all the surrounding areas. So 250,000 people within a 25-mile radius or whatever. Well, in Green Bay, there's the Fox River that kind of goes right through the city. So it is east side and west side. So even though you look at the population in Green Bay, there are certain components to location. So that's why that's a great thought process, Robin, because even though there may be some geographical components that I would say, okay, I'm going to kind of focus on the west side of Green Bay or the east side of Green Bay, depending on what's available, right? So it might be something that, yeah, the location would be where would this particular market tend to go? Do they go to the mall? Is it something that, yeah, maybe it's going to be near an elementary school that's kind of got that makes sense. So the one nice thing with, if you're suggesting to your friend to open up a new store, right? They're gonna be in the location where they want to run this store, so they can kind of feel out that concept. Okay, how is this going to flow? How are we going to get people to come here? Because it's going to be new and people have busy lives. So enticing them to come to something new is going to be a challenge, to make sure that the location, yeah, we might look at income, right? And see, who are we going to gear it towards in terms of, is it going to be geared towards those that are really budget conscious? Or, are we going to make our resale shop an upscale resale shop? Are we going to make it socially conscious resale shop? I actually just saw that as I was driving a couple days ago. It was a new resale shop that went up, and it was based on the socially concept, environmentally responsible concept with the resale sale store is how they termed it, right? Which falls into some of that psychographic, right? Remember that psychographic component of different attitudes and beliefs versus just age, income, geographic location, right? So what might be some other psychographic data that might be important other than what I just said about being socially responsible? What might be some other ways that we might? Another psychographic concept. Okay, now are the math people like thinking, so those of you who love math, right, are like, can you just get to the math end? I don't want to think creatively right now. Right? Yeah, I want you to think creatively. Yeah. So the concept, being socially responsible, is part of that. Think of it as like a social shift that's occurring, right? It's different now. How we can kind of tell if it's a social shift or not is if you think about your grandparents, right? Would most of your grandparents, when they were younger, cared about things like recycling or composting? Well, actually, composting probably, because they did compost often because they had gardens, but yeah, not really. Right? And that's how you can tell that it's a shift in attitudes or beliefs. Kind of go back to, okay, well, this is how my grandparents did things and what they believed, and then look at how things have changed now. So yeah, the fact of being really trendy, although as Jade is saying, people have always been kind of like, there's always been fashion trends. And I don't know if it's any different now in terms of belief. If anything, we might be more laid back than ever. But I don't have hard data on that. Yeah. So, when your grandparents went to buy clothes, where did they go? When your grandparents went to buy clothes, how did they get them? Yeah, so they go like big box retailers, Sears and Kohl's and Kmart, of which Kmart and Sears are no longer, right? They might have ordered it from a catalog, okay? Goodwill, garages was so most of the time they went direct and bought new from a retailer. I want you to think about where you live and where you shop. How many resale shops, Goodwills are around? Do you think there's more now than there was before? Why do you think there's more now? Why do you think there's more now? Let's go through it that way. There has to be a demand for it or we wouldn't have more. So we have a lot of stuff. That's right, Heather. We do. We tend to be, we buy a lot. Oh, fast fashion. That's a great point. Things. Yeah, we're again, we've got that concept, that belief of, recycle, reuse, upcycle, take these things and, use them for something else, right? Just go on to Pinterest and find out, how we have these uses for other things. So we buy a lot, we save a lot, and then we get rid of a lot, right? We we go to and drop off stuff all the time at things like Goodwill and all of that, or sell it to a resale store. So that concept has changed. All right. So let's go back to some math, right? So there's our kind of our concept for our friend. Let's look at the cost structure. Fixed costs are fixed, just as it sounds. Variable costs fluctuate or vary, just like it sounds. So it's kind of easy to remember. So here's our costs. Rent, we have a salary for a helper. We have a promotion contract. So in this case, our marketing is fixed because it's a contract. It's not just something that we're buying on a whim. We've said, okay, I'm going to use this billboard for a year, whatever it might be. Utilities, insurance, and then a debt payment. So the total fixed costs per month are going to be $5,000, right, that we've determined. So variable costs for a resale store, we're going to keep it simple. We're not going to have an hourly employee. So it's just our salaried employee and ourselves. So we're going to keep that easy. So our only actual variable cost then is what we are buying the goods for. So let's start and say the average variable cost is $1. That's what we're going to take a look at. We expect to sell 5,000 items per month. So let's look at that break even. Our formula for break even is fixed costs, right up here, fixed costs total. Okay, so for the month, and then the unit price subtract the unit variable costs. So our fixed costs were $5,000. Oops. It is harder to use this one at home than at school. $5,000. Okay, we're going to just clear that out. There we go. 5,000. I'm not going to do that anymore. And our unit price was given as $3, right? Right here, $3. And average variable cost we were given as $1. So 5,000 divided by 2. If you double check my math, hopefully you get 2,500, right? So that means I have to sell 2,500 units per month in order to cover all of my fixed and variable expenses. Okay, so this break even is not does not take into account profit at all. That's the whole concept. So if we look at it from an income statement, and this did not carry over very well, right? So if we look at an income statement, we have sales first. So that's the first line of our income statement. So 2,500 units at my $3 selling price means for the month, operating at break even, I am going to have $7,500, right? So that's my sales. I subtract my cost of goods sold. Cost of goods sold is my variable cost, right? The cost of goods sold. So variable cost of 2,500 units is $2,500. Sales subtract cost of goods sold gives me gross profit, which is usually right in a nice little neat line, but again, with the upload to Blackboard, it did not come over very well. So gross profit is $5,000. The next section of our income statement is then what we call operating costs, operating expenses, or fixed costs in our sense. So we were told our fixed costs are $5,000. So I then subtract out $5,000, and that gives me my operating profit of 0. I know I did my formula right because that's exactly what break even is telling us. At what point in sales is all of my costs calculated, right? Now, on an income statement, we still would have perhaps interest expense, taxes, profit. So if I had a loan and I had an lot of income of interest expense, then I would be I would be a negative, right? It is not covering to net profit. Okay, a break even only brings me to operating profit. Okay, operating profit. Stepping away from math for a little bit. What factors other than price are important to your friend? Industry trends. So you would want to how would we figure out industry trends? what might be some suggestions we would give her to try to do a is resale on the growth side, or is it on the decline side, right? How might she find that out? Is it on the growth or on the decline side? Yeah, to be honest, you can Google it and look at social media. There's so much information out there. And yeah, some of it we can go and get direct data, just like Chong is saying, and say, you know what? Obviously, if this is something that you want to start, it's something that's probably very interesting to you. It's something that you enjoy. So you're right. I find out from people that also are doing this, or people that go to resale stores a lot and ask them, kind of get that direct information like a poll would be. So yeah, look at industry trends. Take a look at what's already out there. Competition, what's there already? Does it look like there's anything that's coming into the mix, right? Take a good look at those locations, what's out there, what's available, what's pricing, what might be some challenges in terms of opening up a brick and mortar store, right? Because what do we know about retailing? Are there trends that are going away from brick and mortar in retailing as to how we buy things? Yeah, there's more and more online. So, okay, that's going to be a challenge that we're going to want to look at. What might be some suggestions you might give her for store atmosphere as a means of differentiation or providing value? What might be some things she could do that says, whoa, this is a unique experience? Have any of you ever been to REI? Yeah, into like a kids thing. Haven't you been to an REI store? It's way too expensive. Yeah, they are very expensive. Part of their means of differentiation. What does REI do a little differently than a lot of other retail stores? This is a company that's geared towards outdoor activities, right? The kind of higher end, more expensive, but those who are really serious about being outside and being active. Right? They have things like a climbing wall. Yeah, they have climbing wall like Dick's Sporting Goods, right? Those types of activities that try to draw in customers as a means of differentiation. It's not just buying something online anymore. That's still possible, of course, but differentiating that actually makes someone to come in to the store. So our friend could do that. Yeah. What kinds of things would make kids excited to go there? And no, depending on, or maybe what's something that's maybe going to make grandparents really excited to go there. Maybe that's the view we take too. Maybe this place has like a really nice little coffee shop in it. So grandparents can come on in, and then while they're there, they're going to buy something too. I don't know. I'm just throwing out options, right? But that's the kind of thing you'd want to take a look at. What can we do to make ourselves unique and valuable, and start brainstorming how that goes about, rather than maybe just another resale store where you're going in and there's lines upon lines upon lines of different types of clothes. What else can we do? Right, so store atmosphere, way of providing value that way. So back to pricing. Broad pricing strategies are kind of how you go about it depends on where we are in terms of that life cycle. So cost-based pricing is just that. It's taking the cost, adding a percentage onto it, and that's the selling price, right? And that's how we get it. very straightforward, very mathematical, tends to happen early in the life cycle, right? Because once competition comes on board, that doesn't really work anymore, because if the competition isn't pricing that way, we may be overpricing or underpricing, right? So we want to, as we mature and gain experience, we go to more of what we call market-based pricing or competition. The hardest of all is value-based pricing, and that's based on that perception or that value that we talked about earlier. Well, it's really hard to know the perceived value until you have experience within the market that you're involved in. So value-based pricing doesn't happen until you've got a lot of experience. Now, there are many other terms in terms of pricing strategies. So for example, market, if I'm just putting a new product onto the market, right, I might have what's called a market penetration strategy. That means I'm putting my price to appeal to the most people that I can, because I want to entice the most people to buy this product right away. So I'm penetrating the market. Again, kind of that concept of the lower the price, the higher the demand concept is called market penetration. I can have what I call a market skimming strategy, where I'm pricing it really high. And I'm pricing it high to set a perception, and because I want to recover as much of my costs as possible. So Apple tends to have a market skimming strategy, and then as the new products come on the market, then they change their pricing structure. So from our life cycle, right? Introduction tends to be that cost plus, right? We're just kind of feeling out the waters, and then we grow, maturity, decline. We kind of shift gears as we go to be more value-based as we're going. So how do we do a cost plus pricing, right? So, because that's where our friend's probably going to start to get a feel, or at least run some numbers, and then maybe do some competitive analysis. But how we do a cost-based pricing strategy, again, is fairly straightforward. It is taking the costs that we have, right, that cost per unit, okay, finding those costs, and then we add the cost plus the markup. So if I said that our store was going to have a markup of 50%, right? And I expect to sell, so I expect to sell 5,000 units, right? So remember our initial, I've got 5,000 units. So if I have $5,000 in fixed costs and I'm selling 5,000 units, what is my fixed cost per unit? I'm selling 5,000 units, and my fixed cost is $5,000. How much is my cost per unit? Does a dollar make sense to you? Okay, that makes sense. Okay, I have $5,000 in fixed cost, and I sell 500 units, or 5,000 units. My fixed cost per unit is $1. Okay, good. It's okay. Just want to make sure. All right. Now, do you remember what my variable cost per unit was given as? You trust me? Thanks. Oh, this is going to be on the quiz, so I want you to get it, right? My variable cost was given as $1 per unit, right? So that information was given. So fixed cost per unit and variable cost per unit. So $1 plus $1 is $2. So that's my costs. My costs are $2. If you take $2 and multiply by 0.50, right, 50%, you get $1. So $2 in costs plus my $1 in markup will give me a selling price of $3. Let's have you guys do this. Okay, so let me change the scenario a little bit. Our fixed costs stay the same, but my variable cost is now going to go to $2 instead, right? I've kind of changed my strategy. I'm going to more upscale. So my variable cost is changed to $2. How would that change the selling price? So what's my fixed cost per item? Yes, that's the right answer. Yeah, it's going to increase the price. Chong's got the, Scott, you got the right answer. Yeah, $4.50. Okay, so if you're not quite sure how that happened, right? My fixed cost is still $1 because I didn't change that at all. I didn't change any of those variables. The variable cost is $2. So my total cost is $3. And then I take and add my markup, which is $1.50, right? 3 multiplied by 0.50. So 3 plus $1.50 equals the $4.50 selling price. Okay, so you can see it's a fairly straightforward. As my variable costs change, I can work through it pretty easily in terms of changing that selling price depending on those variables. On a scale of like 1 to 10, how confident are you that you'll be able to do this for the quiz and understand it well? Let me get a feel. Okay. I want to make sure I'm not going too fast on this. I haven't taken any sips of coffee while I've been doing the math. And this is a great check. Yes, with the formula in front of you, because, right, you can always look back at your notes because it's open notes for the all exams, right? I never have a closed book or closed notes exam because the real life doesn't work that way. Oh, all right. If I said my markup was 70%, let's make sure. What would be my change then in this scenario? My markup is 70%. How would that change? Yes. Perfect. Yep. Perfect answers up there. Excellent. But yeah. All right. Okay. We have no more math. Oh, no, that's not true. I'm going to run through a numbers example that I'm hoping came through very well. Excellent. Yeah. So cost-based pricing is as straightforward as that. And now again, competition or market-based pricing, you have to know what's going on in the market. You have to do a lot of research in order to do a market-based pricing. But you know, in our example with our friend starting something new, how would she get that market-based pricing? How could she get market-based pricing as she starts? Yeah, you go out and you take a look at the competition. What are they pricing at? You can go in other stores, research competitors, all of that. Perfect. You can look online, right? You can, yeah, and so then you get a feel for, okay, well, this is where the competition's at. This is what's available, and you'll know this is what's kind of the hot thing right now because that's your business, right? So most of the businesses that are out there that you guys work in that you've used for homework, um, they know the market, right? Oh, great example, Angela. Yeah. So if you're looking to sell something, you go out and look at what other people are selling it at, and if it's selling at that price or if it's not, right? So real estate pricing, a great example, although it's a little bit more muddy in our current market right now, because things are not always logical in today's real estate market, but 2 years ago it would have been, right? All right, so I will let you read that, and then we're going to look at some pricing tactics, and I want to dispel some thought processes on pricing and promotion by running the numbers, and then we'll kind of wrap things up. So we won't be done, gosh, we're going to be done early tonight. Have I really been talking that fast? Have I really been talking? Oh my gosh. Yeah, hey, okay. These are pricing tactics, right? So price bundling, right? So price bundling might be when you see sometimes like if, in fact, I just saw it with cough medicine, right? So you can buy one thing of NyQuil, right? Or you can buy a bundle where it has DayQuil and NyQuil together in the same package. That's price bundling or packaging. Or you can get two NyQuil together, right? So price bundling or packaging. And that's a pricing tactic because typically, right, if let's say one bottle of NyQuil is $10, your price bundle of two NyQuil, might be $18, right? So there's usually a decrease in price to incentivize purchasing two of them instead of one, price bundling. Leasing is considered a pricing tactic because you are enticing more people to purchase without being a capital expenditure. So in business terms, a capital expenditure is when you buy something that is going to be used over many years. So for example, if a company purchases like a forklift, right? That would go through capital budgeting, right? But a lot of times, and it is true that a lot of times on the personal finance and leasing does not make sense. Sometimes it does. That's not an absolute. But in business sense, sometimes leasing a forklift might be a better option than buying it as a capital expenditure. A lot of variables are there. But the concept of leasing is a pricing tactic to open up the market to potential buyers. Rebates, right? Pricing tactic. What's a company that uses rebates all the time? What company pops into your mind? Yeah, Menards. Almost always, Menards is like the first one that comes into. Yeah, Menards 11%. Are they still even running it now? Does anyone know? Hmm. See, you guys even know the branding lines for Menards. Save big money at Menards, right? When we talked about branding, we have those taglines, right? Brand symbol and brand. Yeah. Um, okay, so I haven't been to Menards in a while, which just tells you I've been too busy projects. Right? Coupons, right? We've seen coupons shift from paper coupons over to digital, right? So coupons are still popular, but the form has changed, right? So a lot of grocery stores, Target, gosh, I don't know, does Walmart do digital coupons? They'll do a digital rebate, but do they do, I don't think they do digital coupons, now that I think about it, right? Seasonal discounts, we're seeing that. Yeah, Pick and Save really does. Target does. Yeah, I don't think Walmart does, which I guess I've never actually thought about it until talking to you guys right now, right? We're in a seasonal discount almost all the time in our society, but the seasonal discounts you're probably seeing right now have to do with Halloween, right? If you go into a store, a lot of the Halloween candy, fall decorations are now coming into play. Can you guys hear my dog in the background? I want to just know how sensitive the audio is. Okay. Chris, look, yeah, he's kind of whining out there. He's down in the basement, but with my son. So thank you for the feedback because I never know how much the audio kind of picks up to know when it's being distracting for you guys. It's better than kids fighting. Yeah, almost anything is better than kids fighting. My youngest is 16 now, so the only one fighting with my 16-year-old is me as today. Part of why I'm here. Yeah. Oh, so we're almost there. So you can tell your kids, tell your dogs that not too much longer, less, probably 15 minutes longer, and I'll have you on your way. Okay, yeah. So seasonal discounts. We're discounting all of Halloween, which is next week, but because yes, Christmas stuff has been out for a while and now is going to come out more. Quantity discounts. Quantity discount. I'm with you, Ian. Yeah, love them, but yeah, sometimes I don't know what to say. Quantity discounts, right? I see this a lot of times at grocery stores. Woodman's is a really good grocery store for this, where buy one at $3, but you buy two at $5. Right? So the concept of you've got a shift in pricing to incentivize you to buy more than one, right? So it's a way of pricing to incentivize that. Markdowns is just that. Markdowns and seasonal discounts can sometimes be the same. Yeah, I know. Does it happen to be like a Kohl's coupon in the mail to incentivize shopping? Kohl's, I haven't gone to Kohl's in ages, but for whatever reason, I've gotten like 2 emails a day for the last 4 days from Kohl's. So they are on yeah, they are on a rampage right now. Um, uh, yeah, so great point though, 'cause to even show that coupons are still an active pricing tactic. Okay. Leader pricing means just that you are pricing to really lead the market. You're trying to gain market share. That's the concept of leader pricing, right? So leader pricing is usually part of a bigger strategy. Okay. Business to business, those tend to be consumer. Business to business still have a lot of the same concepts, seasonal discounts, but with business to business, you might have a cash discount instead. So an example of how we might cash discount is, okay, if you pay, $100 a widget and buy 500 widgets, it's still $100 a widget, but we will, give you a cash discount of $5 or $500, right? So that it's not really changing the price. It's kind of giving you that discount. A lot of times in business, we don't want to fluctuate some of the pricing like we do in consumers, right? Consumers, every week, the pricing is different on a lot of items, right? It might be, $5 for a 12-pack of soda this week. Next week, it might go to $8. And then the week after, it might be, if you buy 4, you get it for $16, so it's gone down for 4, right? In things like in the consumer world, we change things a lot. We don't want to do that in business, right? We don't want that fluctuation. It causes havoc. So we might not change that $100 per widget ever, but we may change those cash discounts. Yeah. So with what Jade's talking about with the invoice payment, that is called terms, credit terms. So an example of how that might work is it might be 1% net 10 and or 1% 10. Actually, let me put it this way: 1% 10 net 30. So you might see something like that. Oh, that's supposed to be a 1, not an exclamation, right? 1% 10 net 30. And what that means in business terms is if you pay that invoice in 10 days, yeah. So that is a pricing tactic as well, because you are actually discounting the invoice, but there's an incentive that's tied to that is a finance. But this is kind of where finance and marketing might meet sometimes, because what is this saying is you're going to give them a 1% discount if they pay in 10 days. But if they do not pay in 10 days, if it's after 10 days, then they pay the full price. So if my invoice was $100, right, we'll just say $100. If I pay it in 10 days, I only have to pay $99. If I don't pay it in 10 days, then it would be best for me to just wait for 30 days. That's just a better way of managing money. In 30 days, then I pay $100. So I can save 1% by paying it 20 days early. In finance, we calculate that out, look at it as a cost of money, and say, okay, you know what? Should we take this discount or not? Does it make sense? Well, in marketing terms, again, this is kind of another way that I can not change my price of my item, but I can kind of give my potential customers a way of reducing the cost, right? So that's using terms. Vendor allowances, zone pricing we see that sometimes where the price is different in different states, right? And that could be dependent on transportation costs. It could be dependent on labor costs in certain states, right? So that's zone pricing, and then quantity discounts. Okay. I'm going to come back to this. So other than Menards, which of these have you guys come in contact with this week? Somewhere. In the gas station, in the restaurant, in the app. Anyone use the Starbucks 50% off today if you're Starbucks? And that's the only reason why I went. Oh, Quick Trip rewards. Yeah. Poor Quick Trip. Has the Quick Trip by you guys had issues? Were they hacked? Subway. Yeah, Quick Trip had a severe technology issue. Yeah, it's back up and running. Does anyone have any inside? Were they hacked? Yeah, it was company-wide.
Yeah,
Was it company-wide because they were hacked?
they were hacked because I just got off the phone with them because I had double charges on my account too.
Oh, okay.
So I was talking to her and she says, yeah, they were hacked and that's why it was down for so long.
Yeah. So did they not pay? They probably wouldn't have told you, but did they not pay and that's why it was down for so long? Or did they pay?
I don't know.
Yeah. I would love to know the inside information on that. Which just tells you like the world we live in, and how, like, can you imagine being part of their marketing department and their operations department, their finance department? Because I mean, yeah, it's not. I have a friend of mine who works for a healthcare company here in Green Bay, and we happened to go to lunch in September, and they were hacked. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Um, yeah, so this was a fairly decent sized healthcare system here in Green Bay. I don't know how far it went, but in essence, they were hacked and it was for ransom. And I don't know if they did it or not, but they were down for more than a month. More than a month. They went back to all paper. So like there were some people who went in to look for their prescriptions, right? And everything is so computerized, electronic is like it took like 2 weeks for my sister-in-law to get her optical prescription because they couldn't pull it because they couldn't access the system. Yeah, it was, I mean, I guess, you read about stuff, but it's not the same as experiencing it. And I thought, boy, oh my gosh, this is getting close to home now. Like this was pretty nasty, and it was a long time. I'd love to know internally, all of the ends of how this was taken care of. Did they end up paying more money? Did they end up going around it? What ended up happening? So somewhere, if you ever see a documentary on that, let me know. Shoot me an email because I would love to experience the internal components of that. So,
Our company was hacked 2 years ago, and our IT department caught it like immediately that they already shut everything down. So then, I mean, it did go through, but we didn't have any ransom or anything that they were trying to get from us. But we were down for 3 days, and like the plants had to start making cheese by hand and getting out like all the old recipes to figure out how to make cheese by hand. But
yeah, yeah, which is, sometimes it's just kind of, I view something like that as almost a blessing because it forces us to okay, we need to have some binders, that kind of these emergency binders if our system goes down, right? We're so dependent on it. So sometimes little things like that, certainly a pain, but in the long run, having to maybe go through and look up those recipes by hand and you know have that experience potentially might be good in the future if this continues to escalate, which I'm sure it will because that's yeah. So
ours came from somebody opened up an email that was a bogus email, and as soon as they opened it up, it's just started going like immediately. It was like so fast that it was trying to like just grab all of our information, and IT saw it and just quickly just shut everything down.
yeah, that's
It was really
do
weird.
do you guys have to go through that type of training? All of you.
Yeah.
Do you do it on an annual basis? Monthly you do. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. I just had to do some training. I ended up having to teach a class for UWGB, and it was just kind of a fluke. They had a, an instructor that quit right before the class was supposed to run. So my friend is an advisor there, and they didn't catch that the instructor wasn't there until it was the first week into a 7-week class, right? So it's a 7-week accelerated class. So she called me, she's like, we need some help. Can you teach this finance class? So kind of, I've never taught for GB before, but did to help them out. Why I say this is part of their training. I mean, it was like 2 hours of training going through just like you guys are talking about, where this is what you open, this is what you do, going through all of that technology and security awareness is what they called it. And it was very, I mean, you'd go through it once and then you'd go through it again and you'd go through it again. So, I mean, it was very, very in depth, which tells me that yes. And just like you guys are saying here, wow, test emails. Wow. So it is, yeah, it's, That is like great ideas with IT to send fake ones regularly. I mean, that just makes good strategic sense. I never thought of it, but gosh, I love learning from you guys. That is like good strategy. All right, I promised you we'd be done soon. So let's go to price cutting, talk about that. Thank you for expanding my knowledge base on this topic of ransomware and security awareness. It is often that we see price cutting, and price cutting is a viable means of marketing and trying to increase demand and sell more. But why I'm calling it a myth is there's sometimes scenarios where we just say, okay, you know what, let's just cut the price. And that price cut's automatically going to increase demand, right? Going back to that econ scenario we started with, but that is not always the smart financial move, right? It might increase demand, but that might not be good for the bottom line. So typically it's better to work on that value component and use price cutting in targeted areas, in short burst areas, to try to incentivize. But here's why, again, reducing price, increasing demand may be good for quantity. It may not always be good for the bottom line in terms of profitability. So you don't have to do this math, but you have to follow along, right? So let's take a look at where our income statement was with our previous example, right? So before we said, okay, we're going to sell 5,000 pieces of clothing at $3 each per month. So my current sales are 15,000. Variable cost of $1 each. There we are. So sales subtract cost of goods sold gives me good gross profit. My fixed costs were 5,000, remember? And that gives me an operating profit of $5,000. We're going to keep it clean and simple. We're just going to take out taxes and then have a net profit. So if I say, okay, let's discount the price by 25%, right? 25% discount doesn't seem like that big of a deal, right? And if I do that, I'm going to expect sales to increase by 40%. And that sounds really good. Discount 25%, sales will increase by 40%. So a 40% increase in sales, we will go from 5,000 to 7,000 units, right? 7,000 units, a 25% discount on $3 will be $2.25. So my sales go up to $15,750, which is great. However, what we know about variable costs is variable costs really don't fluctuate too often, right? So our variable cost is still $1, right? We still pay that for the piece of clothing. So my variable costs are 7,000, which gives me a gross profit of 87.50. My fixed costs do not change. So my operating profit is 37.50. Taxes are 30%. So my profit now is 2,625, right? I sold more, but my profit is less. We may do that, right? We may do that as, again, part of a targeted marketing campaign, as part of trying to put out a new product, whatever it might be. But we don't, we want to be mindful if we do that, what's the effect going to be, okay? Yeah, so like now, like typically, like when you get a raise, right? If it brings you up a step on the income, yeah, then yeah, you're getting more taken out of taxes out of that step in income. Yeah, and that, Scott, really kind of what you're saying, what you're think would be part of a marketing strategy where maybe you just believe that, okay, I need to expand, um, and then you truly believe that the value is there, and they'll find the product of value that when it goes back up to $3, they're still going to buy it, right? That it's going to be, oh yeah, this is fantastic. We still love the product, right? The second myth, the same math, right? The first one was when business is good, I go out and gain more market share. Yeah, and if you're right, to push out old inventory, um, yeah, that might be the case. And then, it's kind of a process, a thought process of, okay, you need to gain that data, that information. Why is this inventory so old? Why is it a slow mover? In retail, we call it sometimes. Why is it so slow? Well, maybe I didn't come in at the right part of that trend, or whatever it might be. But yeah, so that would incentivize at least getting it out, right? So you are kind of making up in quantity just to get it out the door and get it sold, right? Second myth, again, same math, is if business is bad, a price cut will stimulate sales. And it may, right? Again, we've got that supply and demand curve, or that pricing demand curve, right? But again, if we continue to just price cut, um, we're not, our profitability is going to suffer. So there's the math. Pricing ethics, right? We don't want to do these things. Don't want to. There's the math. Pricing ethics, right? We don't want to do these things. Don't want to be deceptive. We don't want to illegally price advertising, right? This is one of the biggest challenges in today's technology, right? Take these 2, diet pills a day, and you'll lose 40 pounds. And even Oprah Winfrey is doing it, and which Oprah Winfrey has nothing to do with this. They're just scamming her picture. There's all kinds of stuff going on like that, right? Price fixing, right? Agreement to that it's illegal to price fix here in the United States. An example of price fixing that is legal in their country is OPEC, OPEC, right? OPEC, that's what they do. All of these member OPEC areas, come together and set the price for their oil. Yeah, that's price fixing. Like I said, here in the United States, we can't do it, but they can and they do, right? Predatory pricing, trying to set prices low. There are times when we can use price discrimination in a good way, and I gave an example there, right? A senior discount is not necessarily a bad thing. It is price discrimination. It's discriminating on a certain age, but it's acceptable and it's beneficial to the age, right? Then we could reduce. Yeah, military discount. Yeah, would be another. It's separating by a certain, but it's so price discrimination from an ethical standpoint would be more so of like increasing the price for a certain group. That would be a predatory. That would be an ethical issue, right? So if you're like, okay, this group of people, pays this, but these segments are going to pay more. Yeah, that would be an ethical area. So again, take a look at it, broad picture. Yeah, so ARP would be an example of using it beneficially, right? It's beneficial. They're providing a discount for a certain age group based on buying power, is really what ARP is able to do. They're able to go to those, I can't yet, but my husband can join ARP. I should actually just join ARP for him just to get hotel discounts or something like that. And that's what how they use it, where they say, listen, we have a really big buying pool that belong to ARP. And that's why sometimes at hotels you'll see an ARP discount, because the hotels recognize that there's value in that for them. All right, here's the deal. There's your homework. Okay, so it's 2 chapters together on this particular PowerPoint, and I think it's slides 19 and 20, not 18 and 19. Yeah, it's actually slides 19 and 20. I ended up modifying some things and changing it around. Okay, so one or the other, one paragraph, right? Does your company use any of those pricing tactics? Or if they don't, what would you suggest? Okay, so pretty straightforward homework, because again, you have the quiz that is due. So let me make sure. I will make sure that the quiz opens up when we're finished. Do you have any questions for me? Any questions? Okay, if you don't have any questions, you can sign off. Yes, the quiz is on the chapters mostly from the midterm on. Yes, so it was on chapters 9, 10, 11, no, 9, 11, 12, 14, and 15. So it's through tonight's lecture. So just the last couple of lectures that we've gone through is the main focus of the quiz. Yeah. All right. Have a great night. I will make sure that the quiz opens. I think I might have set it for 7:30. So I'll go and adjust that. See you guys next week. Only 2 more lectures to go, and then we are to the final exam, right? So week 10 and week 11. 2 more lectures and we're done. Online students, keyword number 1 is 9, N-I-N-E, and then keyword number 2 is dog. Keyword number 2 is dog.